Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Idaho House Republicans podcast, where you get to meet and get to know a little bit more about the legislators that you have sent to the State House. And today we are very pleased to have Representative Steve Tanner. He represents Legislative District 13. He sits in Seat B and he's in his first term. Welcome to the Idaho House Republicans podcast, Steve Tanner.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, let me tell you a little bit about Steve. He has a fascinating background. I was just telling him before he came on, I've never read anything like this. I couldn't predict what he was going to do in life because he can do so much. He was born in Hawaii, and you probably have a Social Security card from Hawaii, unlike Obama, who had one from Connecticut. Yeah. Anyway, he's a military family. He lived in the Philippines for 2 years. He has a bachelor's in philosophy from Cal State University. He's got an MDiv from Fuller Seminary. He's got a master's in clinical mental health counseling from Liberty University. He's a licensed professional counselor, but of course, he went into IT, and he's a database programmer and analyst. That's what you did. You know, the logical conclusion of all that. And he has actually summited Mount Whitney 3 times. How about that? And the best part, of course, of your life is your beautiful wife, Kathy, of 31 years.
Absolutely.
So again, welcome to the show, Representative Steve Tanner. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Okay, so the first thing I have to ask you, of course, is you live in District 13. Tell us where that is and what your constituents care about. Why did they send you?
Right. Well, so District 13 is basically the eastern half of Nampa. If you were to drive a line down through the center of Nampa, going along 12th Avenue,
Okay.
Garrity, south to north, there's a couple of carve-outs where exceptions, but basically the east side of that is District 13.
And your seatmate is Brent Crane, who's been in a few more terms than you have.
A few more than me, yeah.
So let's talk about that. You are a first termer, you're a freshman. Why on God's green earth did you decide to join this august body? Did you have a calling for it? Tell me about why.
I think, I was like anybody else, just a citizen, never imagined in my life that I was going to run for office. No. But then 2020 happened. 2 things happened in 2020, the COVID, and also, the election, everything that's surrounding the 2020 election.
Right.
A lot of questions there. And I think one of the things that really spurred me to action was I was working for a company here in Idaho that asked me to get the jab.
Mm-hmm. The COVID shot.
Right, to be fully vaccinated by a certain date.
Or you couldn't be employed.
Or they were going to put me on administrative leave or something without pay, something like that. And I refused. And but as things worked out, as the objections to all that were working their ways through the court, I was able to apply for a religious exemption.
Yes.
Which I did, and they accepted it. So I was able to stay employed. But just the oppression of that, and the oppression of, what I remember here in Idaho, one church up in Moscow,
right,
where people were outside, socially distanced.
Getting arrested. For attending a church service.
Yeah, and I said, this is Idaho,
Right.
And I
think
that
kind of shocked you into action.
Yeah, it really did. I think another thing that really kind of, it was kind of an invitation into coming into running into politics, or getting involved in politics, is that politics is so accessible here.
It really is. People have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was a precinct committee man. I still am precinct committee man. And I just started going to meetings and, Raul Labrador there,
right,
the AG,
right,
Dorothy Moon, the chair of the Republican Party, you get to know everybody. You get a real quick sense, of the pulse of what's happening in the state and what the country.
Yeah, I was chair of 8, and we had, Senator Risch, we had Representative Fulcher, we had, Senator Crapo, the governor, lieutenant governor, and a lot of legislators and a lot of the county, and they all wanted to meet. They all wanted to say hello. And the other thing too, Representative Tanner, is that if you come down to the State House, it is very easy to engage the legislators here. It is open. There's no guards. There's no, you can walk into the State House and attend these committees, have a voice, and engage you. It's really, Idaho's pretty special.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So for those reasons, I got involved.
So let's talk about the committees on which you serve. Which committees do you serve on,
Okay, so
Representative?
I'm on health and welfare. Last year I was on education, but they switched me over because of all the rotation stuff going on. They switched me over to health and welfare. And this is my first and technology, and then commerce and human resources. My afternoon committees.
Perfect. So let's talk about some of the bills that you're running, because you have some bills that your name is on them, and one of them is House Bill 541,
right?
Which is the idea is to protect Idaho youth on the internet, and this is a bill you're running with Senator Nichols.
Right.
Talk about this bill. What does it do?
So it's about enticing children over the internet. So we have predators out there that are trying to entice our children over the internet, and there's 1509A, I think
is the code.
But that's been around for a while. But it was only for children under the age of 16.
Okay.
Right. So 16 and 17-year-olds were kind of left, exposed to this. But now, as we're getting statistics, we're finding out that the target group are 13 to 17-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
So we need to protect the 16 and 17-year-olds. So I talked with ICAC, that's the Internet Crimes Against Children. That's the group working under the Attorney General. And they said, yeah, we do need that protection. So we worked on that, beefed up the code to include them. And that passed the House. It's over in this. It actually just passed committee over in the Senate, and it should be hitting the floor over there pretty soon. And
that bill, by the way, was 69-0-1. So you're on to something when you get a unanimous vote in the House. And that's a great bill. Thank you for doing that. Was it a constituent approached you on this, or did you notice something on your own? How did you think of this bill?
Actually,
what inspired you?
Actually, it was just kind of happenstance. I happened to be talking with the Attorney General's office about another matter, and got to talking with one of the individuals there. It just sort of, turned into a conversation, and it's like, okay, this is something we need to do.
And that's the beauty, you never know where the inspiration for a bill comes, but this is obviously needed. It's 69-0-1. So thank you for running that bill. Another bill you're running with the Speaker of the House, Mike Moyle, the Majority Leader, Jason Monks, yourself, and Ted Hill.
Ted Hill, yes.
Involves Idaho and foreign laws.
Foreign laws.
And that is House Bill 602. Tell us about that bill.
Yeah, that's a great bill. And that has gone through the House, and it's over in the Senate. June rules. We're waiting for it to be heard over there. But basically what this law is, it's a law that is also known as American law for American courts. It's been tried a few times before here in Idaho.
That bill?
Wow. I think Eric Redmond.
Yeah, I remember him.
Back in, I think, 2019. And a few people even before that. So what it is basically this idea that courts get cases that come in, and there'll be contracts, that are involved, or there's, personal, like marriages, relationships, where they've been established someplace else, where there's an involvement of foreign law that's involved, and there's kind of a practice in courts that when there's a call to use foreign law, that our courts will look at them, but then they'll say, but in the use of that law, will it violate, the basic freedoms and rights of Americans, people and, American citizens, people in our courts? And if they do, then we won't do that. All right. That's called public policy.
All right.
So what this bill does, it puts that into statute. It puts that practice, into what was inherited from English common law.
Okay.
It puts it into statute.
So the crux of it is that a foreign law will never have superiority over Idaho law, the Constitution of the United States, so that there's supremacy of our laws and the country's laws over any other law. But specifically, this is an Idaho bill.
Yeah, it's an Idaho bill. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it. So any challenge, wherever that comes from any direction that comes from, this puts into statute. U.S. Constitution, Idaho Constitution, the rights and privileges that flow out of those, they're always going to be protected.
And that was 61-6-3.
Yes.
Another blowout, as we say.
That was a good one, too.
Good
yes.
job.
Yeah.
Now, you kind of teased something that you'd be doing a routing slip, what's called an RS, which is the beginning of a bill.
Yes.
The life cycle of a bill, going into health and welfare. So maybe, you can't discuss maybe every aspect of the bill, but maybe just thematically, what are you going to try to do with that bill that you're trying to bring to the House, the Health and Welfare Committee?
Well, it actually has a bill number now. It got introduced.
Congratulations.
It's 776.
Okay. And what does 776 do?
So what this is, there was a death of a baby in Nampa in December. And there was a group of concerned citizens that a lot of them are foster parents, and they are very active and very knowledgeable of the law. And so they were saying, we need some protections in place for kind of situation. So what all this bill does, it's very simple. It just says where you have children who are born to parents who have a really aggravated history, of in their parental history, like if they've had children removed,
Domestic violence.
Yeah. Violence against kids, severe
yeah.
neglect against kids, and not just accusations, but like they have a criminal.
Okay.
They've been found guilty of this. Then all we're asking Health and Welfare to do is give it its highest priority rating, and within 12 hours verify the complaint. If they get a message that so and so is a parent of this baby, and they've had all kinds of problems in the past. All we're asking Health and Welfare to do is get on it right away. Within 12 hours,
right.
Begin to verify that, begin to pull history, and then, only then, if they verify it, just go out and put their eyes on the situation.
Right.
We're not telling them to do anything else. We're not being predictive or prescriptive, rather, telling Health and Welfare what to do, other than just get your eyes on it right away. So that's in Health and Welfare Committee here in the House, and we're waiting for the second hearing on that so it can go to the floor.
And do you know when that's going to happen, the hearing on that?
No, I'm waiting to hear. I've been asking.
But you expect that would happen. Yeah. That will happen. Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about health and welfare, if we can.
Okay.
It's an interesting year for Idaho. Last year we had $450 million that we left over, but then there was this thing called the Big Beautiful Bill.
Right.
Kind of surprised us. And that kind of made a lot of the corporations change their tax, how they were paying their taxes during last year, compounding the Big Beautiful Bill's impact. So here we are. The Idaho governor passed the Idaho Act last year, a 3% cut across the board except for education. We're now in the budget year, and it looks like the rough and tumble is a 4% cut for 2026, a 5% cut for fiscal year 2027. Now, in health and welfare, there's really two pieces to it, right? There's the Department of Health and Human Service. In 2026, that budget's about $235.4 million. The governor wanted $224.3 million. JFAC has come out with $211.2 million, so about a $24 million cut. But the big one's Medicaid, right? Medicaid was $994 million projected for 26. The governor wanted $1,047 million, and JFAC's looking at $970 million, which is about a $20 million a decrease instead of a $50 million increase. As you look at it from the perspective of being on the health and welfare, because you're not in JFAC,
right.
You don't cover this, you're not doing that budget. But as you see the health and welfare and the bills that are coming through and the approaches, how does health and welfare also participate in the cuts that are necessary to balance our budget in a way that you think is the most wise way to approach it?
Well, JFAC came to us early in the session.
Okay.
And said, you look at where you think we need to make cuts and what we need to protect. Well, the Health and Welfare Committee went through a period of a couple of weeks of just doing their own review and then making recommendations to Chairman Vanderwoude And then the chairman went to JFAC, and he took our compiled recommendations, and then went to JFAC. And there's a lot of concern about, and we heard it again on the floor this morning. We're debating 1331. That we need to protect the most vulnerable, and that's my concern too. Is there's a lot of other places I feel like we can cut, in government, but we shouldn't be cutting to people who have, that are challenged by the most serious disabilities.
Right. No, I mean, and did the Senate, do you know if the Senate did a similar, like I know, so Representative Van der Woude, who's the chair of Health and Welfare, asked you to take this on to give him some input. Did the Senate do a similar?
I'm not
sure.
You know? I'm not sure what they did over there.
Okay, well, it's a very wise idea by Representative Van der Woude, who, by the way, is leaving us after.
I know
it's not good for Idaho. We're going to miss him. Just one other topic that I want to just broach with you, since you're on the environment, energy, and technology. Do you have any thoughts about Idaho and its potential in nuclear energy? What's your thought?
I love the idea. There have been so many advances, in nuclear technology in the last 50 years. I remember 50 years ago, it's like we didn't want to be
no nukes. Remember that
after 3 Mile Island? It's like spent a good part of my life in California. It's like living on fault line there, and you don't want nuclear plants. Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's so many advances now, and it's like, and the technology, the reactors are, you can put some of them on the back of a truck.
Right. The microreactors, the small modular reactors. Yeah. It's totally different.
You get a small bank of those, you could run, like metropolitan areas.
And you could keep, you could harden things like a military base, keep it off the grid.
Yeah.
And we have the Idaho National Lab. It's the only national lab of the 17 labs that's nuclear only.
And they're the ones that are doing all this great research.
Right.
So it's just really a question now of how do we get that and make it accessible, so that we can begin to deploy it here in Idaho.
Well, the Senate Joint Memorial number 120 should be coming through soon, which basically is saying to the world that Idaho is open for business, and we see a particular lane in the fuel, recycling nuclear fuel.
That's another crazy thing,
isn't it?
I've never heard of that before. Before it was like, oh, that's spent fuel. We got to
waste.
Yeah, we got to put it in a cave somewhere and just never touch it again. No, they let it cool and then they recycle it.
And a lot of the energy is still left.
Yeah.
And so that'll be coming into the House. So, but we should be watching that, and it'll come through your committee, I'm sure. So anyway, thank you for all the work you do on behalf. You're quite a busy freshman, so can't wait for your sophomore and junior year, right? Anyway, thank you for joining us today on the Idaho House Republicans podcast. Representative Steve Tanner. Again, he represents Legislative District 13 in Seat B. He is in his first term, and we just thank him for coming on. And as we always say before we sign off, God bless the great state of Idaho. Amen. And once again, thank you very much for joining us today, Representative Steve Tanner.
Thank you for having me.
Sunrise on the Snake River Plain, red, white, and blue in the window pane. Work boots dusty from yesterday, but we're back at it the Idaho way.